I'm deeply passionate about artificial intelligence, not since the last year or two, but in 2015, I asked my co-founder a question whether we could use Alexa how to understand dentistry. Um, and 8 years long, that journey has been turbulent at times, but very fulfilling because what we chased over the last 8 years has been how to drive predictable growth in dental practices and dental support organizations. And we wanted predictable growth meant organic growth in terms of the production that you're driving or collections. And we wanted to use AI because it seemed to be the right modality to use in kind of looking at growth from the perspective of three things, right? So I'm titling this presentation New Paradigms because this was not possible before the advent of AI. It's only possible because AI allows us the unprecedented ability to analyze unstructured data at scale and speed that humankind has never seen before. And so as we were chasing growth and figuring out how to instill growth in dental practices and dental organizations, dentistry was moving towards this direct-to-consumer model where B2C marketing was prevalent more than ever before. Last 10 years, we've seen a flooding of marketing dollars going into marketing to drive the right patients in the funnel. And after running this company for over 6 years, this is where 8 years into the business, what we realized was that AI was a great use case to really look at three elements of growth. And the three elements of growth in any business are marketing, sales, and operations. In the context of dentistry, what it means that marketing has to drive the right type of patient into our clinic, right? At the right acquisition cost, right? We have to drive the right patient who needs whatever services that we think are important. Then the sales process begins when we're interacting with the patient on the phone. The patient has to book an appointment. Eventually, they have to show up and everything else. The sales process also is part of the process when they're accepting treatment. And then eventually, operations has to be ready for that patient. I'll explain what that means. Operations has to be ready to see the patient. They have to have the room on the schedule to get them in. They have to have the insurance ability to do insurance properly, and whether it's out of network or in network, they have to be able to offer the service that the patient wants, and a multitude of other things. So when you can figure out how to measure and react to things associated with marketing, sales, and operations, you can almost drive very predictable growth into your organization or even if you're a single dental practice. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the context of what we've built, because we built it all wrong at the beginning. We thought it was all about whether somebody at the front answered the phone correctly. But then we realized after like 30 million phone calls, we realized that it was not just about the sales process. It also had to do with the type of patient that was driven by marketing, and then the operations ability to actually deal with the lead. So that's kind of the framework I'm going to talk about. Everything we talk about today is going to be in the context of either marketing, sales, or operations. And all these reports I'm going to show you, they're going to all talk about that. So what we do, and we ended up, so don't bother reading this slide because it has a lot of text on it. But what we wanted to do was build an AI, an artificial intelligence agent, conversational agent, that allowed dental practices to do the following things in real time. Supercharge marketing efficiency. We were making sure that the right people were coming in. Ignite sales performance. That was very important, like we said before. Improve practice operations by giving visibility to things that were important, and then eventually integrate with EHRs and if that was relevant. And we wanted to really optimize these three elements because when we knew that when we optimize these three things, growth's going to just happen. Now, let's wind back a little bit. And there's a lot of noise about AI today. There's there's a new company formed every day trying to do AI. And what we learned from all the years of doing AI, it's been 8 now, is that what AI is doing really well for companies, organizations that are building the right type of AI, they're focusing on insight and foresight, right? So what we've had so far in the dental world or healthcare world before AI is all this hindsight, right? You have all these analytics as platforms that you subscribe to and your practices. They basically display what information is in the practice management system onto a pretty dashboard, and then you have to kind of do things yourself, right? Um, the new world, and that's really good, right? That has served us well. But AI is part of the new world. The new world is what it does. It takes all that information you have in your practice management system. It takes information that's coming from your phones, from your forms, from your chats, and then converts this information into insight. And what does insight mean? Insight means why did something happen, right? Insight also means what will happen next. And those inquisitive and predictive analytics are becoming a big part of what AI is all about. And then eventually, that insight has to lead to a decision, and decision in what should we do now, right? What should we do now? And then there has to result in action, which what do I do more or less of? So if you're adopting AI in your organization, I would recommend you guys to make sure that every solution is moving you on this continuum from information to action. Because if that doesn't happen, then all you're buying is just a fancy feature that's going to be outdated very, very quickly. So we wanted to make sure that every time we built something within the AI context was giving our clients the ability to understand the why and what should we do next, what should we do more of, and it was going to be easily implemented through your office. I'm going to bring up another slide that has a lot of color on it. And again, if you want these slides, I'm happy to send them to you. But the idea is, and again, don't read too much into it. It's the same slide, except it explains what AI is doing to our world, right? So far in the context of a dental practice, we've had on the left side of the slide where you see this green raw data, clean data, standard reporting. We've had this for a while, right? And we over the past few years, we've had tools that have displayed that data in a nice format into a dashboard, right? The chasm has been is that we always knew what happened, right? Some tools gave us idea of here's what happened, but AI is now we're able to cross this chasm and say why did it happen, what will happen next, and how to make things happen. And that's where AI is moving for all of us, not just in dentistry and healthcare, but across the world. We're able to take large sums of unstructured data and make sense of it to tell us why things are happening the way they are. Because why does AI make it possible? Because AI looks at a lot, 10 levels deep into any kind of data and understands clues that a human would not see unless they had spending countless hours on it. So that's where I implore you guys to really think about the transformation of our society in the context of AI. Either you are on the bandwagon and figuring out how to implement AI in your organization, or you're not. And if you're not, then there might be some slowdown that you might see over the next few years because organizations that are doing this quickly are able to pivot with because they're understanding these insights and foresight. Um, the one big idea that I'm going to talk about a lot today is the concept of early warning signals. Now, before AI, it was almost impossible to analyze phone calls or analyze interactions at scale, and there was no possibility of having early warning signals. But early warning signals are cues within the data that tell us that something is going wrong. And they are early enough for us to figure out, hey, if we do this, if we fix this now, we just found out something was broken just a minute ago, 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. And that's an early warning signal for us that could say that, man, we could have a bad month. We could have a bad quarter. We could have a bad year. Instead of waiting for the whole month to be over to understand, oh my goodness, we didn't meet budget. We didn't grow as much as we wanted to grow. Early warning signals give you the ability to understand and make decisions in real time with interventions that will actually fix the month before you have a bad month. So what we decided to do in the context of dental practices, we created this early warning systems using AI to affect the following things, right? Patient flow, optimization of services and schedules, insurance participation, prioritization of high value patients, understanding cancellations better. The reason I'm showing this to you, because when you apply AI in this context, what we're able to affect is we're able to increase new patient flow. We're able to reduce the cost it takes to acquire a patient. We're able to recover a revenue that we could have never imagined that we would recover because of our early understanding of what went wrong. So what we have served, obviously, over the last 8 years, the biggest consumers of this AI have been DSOs and MSOs who have really used this deeper understanding to really figure out why the patient's not moving forward in that sales process. And then we work with lots of independent practices that do orthodontics for large work and so forth. One of the big concepts that I talk about a lot when I speak at various conferences is if you don't do anything for 2025, let's say we're in the fourth quarter and you have some planning meetings going on and you're going to plan. Let's assume you're going to plan for 2025, and hopefully 2025 is going to be a great year. Interest rates have already come down. They might come down even more. Most likely they will come down on November 6th. And now you're sitting there and planning, oh, I want to grow 10% next year, right? And that's your growth. You're $1 million practice. You want to generate $1.1 million the following year. If you don't do anything but do this, right? And figure out how to understand the customer journey, the patient journey in this case, see how the patient comes into your practice, right? And how they move in your practice, right? How they move from one step to another step, right? From search, from referrals, direct mail, whatever you're doing to get the patients in the door, to booking appointments. Then they come into an appointment, there's a diagnosis and acceptance component, and there's a billing component, there's a reappointment component. And Catapult is organizing this amazing webinar series to really optimize, to really shed light on this entire journey. We've Adrian, who's going to talk, who probably has already talked about the marketing aspect of it. We are talking about calling and booking appointments. Mike Buckner is going to come in next week, and he's going to talk from Pearl about diagnosis and case acceptance. There's lots of ideas going around in billing and everything else. And the way to look at this, okay, Amol, this sounds like a great slide. You have a great designer, wonderful. But how do we make sense of this, right? What do we have? The way we operationalize this slide is we associate a key performance indicator. I hope you guys know what that means. It's a metric that's used to kind of shed light on something. And you associate a key performance indicator with every aspect of the journey, which is, okay, well, here, this key performance indicator might be the total number of leads coming in. This may be number of scheduled appointments. This may be show rates. This may be case acceptance. This may be your billing denials. So you create these key performance indicators, and then you assign them to somebody in the organization that's going to be owning those key performance indicators. Like, you're responsible for this. You're responsible for that. This is our goal. This is our budgeted goal. This is what we want to hit. And you are responsible. And sometimes it may be a marketing agency. Sometimes if you're a large organization, it might be marketing VP or a director. And you create these key performance indicators and you assign them a champion or an ownership or somebody who is accountable for that, eventually they'll figure out a way to measure that. And measurement's the key. Once you figure out where in the funnel the patient's stopping, because at the end of the day, what we are in dentistry for, at least in my view, is we're here to get patients healthy. And the only way the patient gets healthy is they keep moving forward in this journey to optimal health, right? Even the reappointment stuff. So that's really an important concept. If you don't do anything, please do an exercise. There's lots. Go to ChatGPT and ask them how to map the customer journey. There's lots of resources available. What are the challenges that I've seen in marketing world as you guys think about, you obviously you have to have your existing patients. 80%, 85% of your revenue will come from existing patients. But the revenue that comes from new patients is going to be the most accretive to your EBITDA and most accretive to your top line growth as well. Unfortunately, marketing has been very fragmented in dentistry, and nobody has looked at it in from the perspective of like, oh my goodness, are we driving the right patients? Are we answering those calls? Are we booking these patients? A big healthcare survey was done last year, which said for every 100 leads that are created at the very top of the funnel, we're only seeing 2 patients in the operatory, which means we have a lot of inefficiencies built into the marketing system. One of the first things we did at Patient Prism was tackle this, right? Tackling what's the top of the funnel loss. It's like we're driving the wrong people in the mix. They don't even want appointment. They're not even patients. We got to fix that, right? So what we did is through a lot of understanding of AI, we were able to decipher whether we are getting good leads or not good leads, and then have conversations with marketing partners about, hey, what are we doing? Just by fixing these 3 things, the quality and the quantity of leads, being able to nurture the patients that we didn't answer phone calls for through texting and two-way texting, and fixing the conversion problem, taking them from 50, 60% conversion to 80, 85% conversion, without spending any more money, we started seeing a huge increase in the number of patients that we're seeing. From 2.5 to 3 patients extra per month, we started seeing 15 patients a month without actually having to spend any money, because all we did, we shed light on things that were going wrong by measuring things that were going wrong with the assistance of AI. And I'll show you what that means. So then we're able to provide organizations metrics like, hey, well, Google Ads drove 5 emergencies and 3 ortho patients, 2 implant patients, 10 hygiene patients. We were able to understand lead quality and lead quantity in a way that was never understood before. We could actually say, these are the mechanisms you're driving patients in, and these are the type of leads that are coming in. Because if we're not, right, if organic is not driving orthodontics and implants, what does that mean? That means I need to focus on my search engine optimization, create content for ortho, create content for dental implants. That gives me, this is what it is. The number has to give you insight. It has to say, why did I only get 1? I want to do like 5 starts a month. For Invisalign, I'm doing only 1, maybe half, right? If I'm doing only 6 starts a year. If a number doesn't tell you a story, it's useless having that number, because what's the point, right? One of the interesting things we did with, and again, I won't spend too much time on this slide because this slide could be a 1-hour presentation. One of the things we wanted to solve for is understand denominators better, understanding cost of acquiring a customer. And when we took the Google's ad platform or Meta's ad platform or Bing's ad platform, and we said, what if we could have a better understanding of what type of patients are we attracting? What does that mean? So let's say you're an office that's running an Invisalign campaign to drive more Invisalign patients into your office. What in the past, before we came about, what was happening was that campaign was generating all these conversions. And Google measures a conversion when somebody picks up a phone and speaks for 20 seconds, regardless of what they want. And so a lot of times you start spending all this money, but you are not getting enough leads, enough people. You're only doing still one start a month. And you're wondering why. Well, the marketer is telling you that, hey, I drove you so many leads. So we fixed that by saying, okay, well, because the AI knows that we're driving, we know that it's a patient, they called, they wanted Invisalign. Why not, if we report that conversion action, if they booked an appointment for Invisalign back into the ads platform, then number one, we have the right denominator. Let's assume we were spending $9,000 on a campaign. This is kind of unrealistic, but I'm doing it to keep the math simple. And we're driving that, and we only got 9 booked appointments. Now my cost per booked appointment for Invisalign is $1,000 a patient. If I'm paying $1,000 for Google and something for the marketing person, let's say $200, then I'm spending $1,500 to Align Technologies, and we're close to $3,000. Now we have overhead and everything else. By the time it's all said and done, if we have an associate, then we're paying them another 30%. And we're making like $3 on Invisalign. So it really allows us to understand, is it even worth it? If I'm charging 4,000 for Invisalign and all I'm doing is drive, even if I'm driving 5 starts a month, all I'm making is $2 or $50 a case. Maybe I need to think about changing my marketing or in reducing my cost or figuring out some other mechanism. So this is new. AI allows us to understand this better. AI also allowed us to report the signals back to Google so you could reduce the cost of acquisition. Again, this is a whole day of presentation. I could present on this slide for entire 8-hour session because marketing is quite interesting. So let's get back to the basics. And so we talked about marketing. Remember the Venn diagram had 3 things. There's marketing, there's sales, and there's operations. When we started the journey at Patient Prism, we thought when a patient didn't book an appointment, somebody at the front office or at the call center didn't do a good job. And that was our hypothesis, and it was true. We just found out that the hypothesis is only true 35% of the time. But here's the magic of AI. This is what I wanted to solve 8 years ago. And it used to take us a long time. And today we're able to deliver the full promise of AI because now when a patient calls, they hang up the phone. If they don't book an appointment, within 20 to 25 seconds, it's less than a minute, we're able to notify the front office or the call center, like, here's what happened. And I'll show you an example of what that is. And that allows you, remember this early warning signal? The early warning signal, we're giving you an early warning signal. Hey, let's guess what happened. Patient called at 9 o'clock, 9:05, the patient hung up the phone. At 9:06, an early we call it missed opportunity alert. It's basically an early warning signal. This is what happened. And the signal said, oh, and this deep analysis, patient called, had Medicare Advantage, didn't have PPO, wanted dentures, was worth about $7,000, really wanted to come right now. And the AI basically said, okay, well, agent was polite, could have been more beneficial to provide information about potential costs, provide a payment plan option, because the person was concerned about that. Now, this early warning signal allowed us, right? The Medicare Advantage thing is another piece of this. Allowed our client to say, all right, well, this is an easy win. Let's call them and bring them back. And what we realized, using early warning signals, our clients started bringing back 25 to 30% of these lost patients on that second try, right? Another example of this was a wisdom teeth extraction patient, wanted to come in morning and afternoon, and the agent told the patient that the receptionist said that they have to fill out paperwork. Excuse me, I have a little cold. They have to fill out paperwork before they could make an appointment. Now, the receptionist or the practice called the patient back, like, hey, sir, we can get the paperwork done for you right now. Come on in. And they won this $3,300 opportunity right off the bat. That's the power of AI. What the power is to understand where the ball got dropped, to provide this non-threatening feedback to the practice, like, hey, I think we could do this. We could bring them back. We were completely shocked and surprised when we saw that 25 to 30% of the patients actually decided to come back. We're completely wowed. I'm like, oh my God, really? My doctor's office called me and offered me an opportunity to come back in. This was the first example of an early warning signal in the sales process. The sales process was we intervened so quickly. Right? We intervened so quickly that we could fix something that got just broken because either we didn't communicate properly about a situation, or we made it difficult for the patient to make an appointment. A lot of times, in all communication, in all of healthcare, um, there is an inherent bias our team members have. We have, as sometimes as doctors, hygienists, dental assistants, treatment plan coordinators, they bring their own pre-existing bias to a conversation that stops the patient in their tracks to move forward. And a lot of times we see in this case, sometimes in this case, they were like, okay, well, our system is we have to get paperwork in. But sometimes you have to know that sometimes people are overwhelmed by paperwork and they don't want to fill it out. If the denture patient might be an older patient, they may be frustrated. They may not be able to do the paperwork on time, and they're going to just call somebody else to get that appointment. For us to understand this quickly allows us to course correct and actually get these patients back. What we're seeing on an average for an average dental practice that does about $1 million of top line revenue, anywhere between 5 to 8 new patients a month are coming in just from our recovery efforts. And you can imagine, depending on what type of services you do, those could be big numbers. Um, the other thing AI was able to do for us, it was like, all right, well, this is good. We are notifying somebody right away. But we also want to improve the quality of answering phone calls. And we said, what if we decided to generate a rubric? It was initial hypothesis for us, and we thought about 30 different variables. Eventually, we settled on 14 statistically significant variables that had the highest probability of success in booking a patient if they were followed. So we decided to use AI to contextually understand if the agent or the receptionist did these things correctly or not. And initially we had a lot of false positives and negatives. Eventually, as AI got trained over millions and millions of calls, it started getting better and better and better at understanding context, not simply the keywords that were spoken, but context, so that we could tell that the receptionist did not actively listen to the patient, did not offer a consultation, did not make a strong effort to book an appointment, did not offer financing. And the effect of this was we could tell that, John, you're answering phone calls at the front desk. And by the way, you did not mention financing ever, or only 50% of time. You hardly made an effort to, you didn't have a strong close. And we started giving report cards to all these agents, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it, right? It's not all bad. It's already bad. Big Brother is watching, but the idea is to make our people better at communicating. And so this was a game changer for a lot of our larger clients who are like, how do we tell people how to get better? We can send them to courses, but we have to tell them in a micro way, like, hey, by the way, Judy, all you got to do is mention financing when there is an implant patient or orthodontic patient coming in, because we got to make it easier for them to come into our offices. And that was important. Again, AI was able to do it. Today, AI is smart enough that it can accurately understand when an agent does or does not do these things. Now, if you have a lot of our clients came to us and said, hey, could you develop, we have a specific way of handling our patient. Could you have your AI adjudicate that or validate that? And recently we launched the ability for you to say, hey, if you have some interesting thing to talk about. Let's say you have a new patient special and you want every patient to get that new patient special. We can actually um, measure, or we can actually validate the adherence to that new patient special and really improve customer service. So we used to have clients come in and these are a combination of dashboard. They used to see, oh my God, they used to come in at 66% conversion. And then when they were starting to follow up with these patients, we send them these alerts. 86 followed up and 59 patients. This is a high number. When patients started coming in, they went from 66% to all of a sudden converting 91% without spending any more money on marketing. And that was a big deal, right? All of a sudden, we're seeing new patients without having to spend more money because we understood what went wrong in the sales process and we fixed it very quickly before the patient went to one of our competitors. I want to talk about change management. The only thing I'll talk about this slide is one of the hardest things to do is change human behavior. And in a dental office today, you guys are being told to buy so many things. You got to have this subscription, you got to have this, patient engagement, reputation management, NPS, practice management, analytics. At some point, it becomes too much, right? And too much, not just, it's easy to buy stuff, right? It's hard to operationalize it. And the way you operationalize it is when you get your team members to actually drink the Kool-Aid that you're saying, oh my God, this is going to be great. And part of what as you select, as you decide on new technologies to implement in your dental practices or your organizations, change management's a tough thing. And you've got to get your team on board if you don't do it. And then part of the reason why we understood that people didn't really care about AI. People didn't care about our product. People didn't care about the technology. What they cared about is, does it make my job easier? And is there incentive for me to do this, right? And so we launched this award system. So whether this is an example of, if you want change management system, you have to build some sort of a reward system in your organization that rewards people for good behavior and nudges them in the right direction. And that's kind of the moral here. Um, the the biggest lesson and the biggest use case of AI that surprised us, frankly, I did not think this was possible, at least for a few more years. And what we realize is imagine a scenario where you have a great marketing person driving really good, those high value implant leads and orthodontic leads and everything else, and driving those leads, and you have an amazing receptionist that is amazing. They do everything right. They have empathy. They are warm. They offer everything that you've told them to offer. They're like Dale Carnegie, and they know how to win people and influence people. But the patient still doesn't move forward, right? And what's the reason for that, right? And what I found out just by talking to a whole bunch of people was there's operational reasons why patients don't book an appointment. So we went to the drawing board in 2020 and said, could we teach? At that point, I was a little more sophisticated in saying Alexa. Now I was an actual executive in the AI world. Initially, I was just like, all right, well, let's solve a problem using math because that's my background. And I said, all right, could we teach, because the AI was getting smarter and it was understanding context. What if we could teach it to understand conversational context in 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 the perspective of why patients don't book, right? So we said, okay, well, what if we could provide reasons not booked to an office and saying in real time, right? After a conversation was over, and say, all right, well, in the Tampa office, if you're seeing the screen, in the Tampa office, 59 patients did not book an appointment with us because we had no room on their schedule. 13 were still considering, 16 new patients hung up on hold while talking to us, and 12 patients didn't book an appointment because we didn't take their insurance. Now, the first thing that should come to anyone's mind in the Tampa office, right? Um, do we have a demand problem or a supply problem, right? We need to grow the business. We need demand, which is patients. We need supply, which is providers, right? Naturally, we don't have a demand generation problem because marketing is driving enough leads. We have a supply problem. Either we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough hygienists, or we're not optimizing a schedule where we are not prioritizing these patients who are coming in because we're running two-column dentistry. We have no idea how to put them on a new column, or there's some other way, right? And so one of the first things we did when we showcased this to our clients, we're like, could we stop marketing in Tampa? Could we stop spending any more money in Tampa for driving patients in the door? Before, let's create more capacity. And that's another lesson that I have learned. The one thing that you can do that costs no money, sometimes it may cost money. But assuming if you can figure out how to optimize your scheduling blocks and figure out how to see patients in a revenue optimized manner and organize those blocks in a way that obviously doesn't diminish the quality of care, but at the same time allows you to triage revenue in a way that you've never done before, you're going to add 5-10% to your revenues just because you've created capacity. It's the biggest thing right now. Now, providing this information in real time, what does it do? It allows you to understand that, man, I need to create capacity in Tampa. I also need to create capacity in Orlando because I'm driving patients, but I'm not able to see them. Then you wonder why the show rates are so low, right? You know, we're living in this Instagram world. We put a post, we want those likes, right? Everybody is dopamine hungry right now. If you don't give an appointment, they're going to go to the next person. And so it's important for us to understand when we start measuring things, and it tells us that we have a capacity problem, we figure out maybe if the problem is hygienist, then we figure out maybe we need to do assisted hygiene. By the way, we're launching a new webinar next week with Rachel Wall on assisted hygiene. Go to patientprism.com and it's a free webinar. It's a 3-part series on how to implement assisted hygiene into your practices. Because the one thing you can do, again, if you create capacity, you're going to make more money, right? And you can create capacity and you're not able to hire all these people. You can do lots of things. Assisted hygiene has been wonderful. And people have used these AI signals to create capacity, to open up schedules, to hire more doctors, to create assisted hygiene stuff. That is the beauty of this is how we drive growth. We don't drive growth by pretty charts and pretty AI or this chat GPT type thing. That's not what it is about. That's what I call insight and foresight. What do I say? Remember I said preemptive, what should we do more of? Well, we should have more providers. What should we do less of? Marketing. Why did it happen? Because we have no capacity. All these things are meant, AIs help meant to give you insight and foresight into what to do on a minute by minute basis. Because once you see this happening, you want to fix it, right? And that's how you compete. You compete in 2025 and beyond in the age of AI by having better access to information that is converted into insight, and that insight is converted into foresight. I wish I could see all of you guys because I can't see any in the reactions. It's really strange. I do a lot of these webinars, but it's really weird because I'm by myself sitting here and just talking and thinking, although I see that attendees are 55, so kudos to you guys for showing up on a Thursday night listening to me talk. We then developed all kinds of metrics on cancellations. This is actual real data from a real client of ours. Their Tampa office was booked out 112 days for new patients. So any new patient who used to call, they're like, booked 112 days. There's no way. There's no way. We got to do something different. important to get into this insight. We also were able to use AI to understand who answered the call, what did they do. We used something called a voice biometric voice fingerprint to assign the right agent to the right person. So we knew Amanda was really good at 32 out of 37 at 86%, but Yvette needs some work. She's only converting 28 out of 41. Yvette also takes 16 minutes on the phone versus 7.5 minutes for Amanda. This was important. In addition to giving them the metrics on what they can do to improve, we also could tell them what they can do to improve. I'm going to pass through this stuff. This is an important concept that was relevant to our larger organizations. We serve some of the largest DSOs in the world, including the largest one. And we wanted to know, a lot of doctors just come like, hey, Amol, I'm busy. I don't have time for any of this stuff. Well, if you're busy, are you the right kind of busy? Right? Because at the end of the day, we have to have the right patient sitting in the right chair at the right time, paying us the right amount of money. And our production per hour matters, right? If you want to do $1,000 per hour or $2,000 per hour, depending on where you are in the continuum of what you do. So it's important to have a good payer mix, we say, in the insurance world, PPOs, HMOs, and fee for service. But it's also important to have the right patient mix. Now, understanding context was important. I call it micrometrics. Understanding context allowed us to understand that, hey, although we're scheduling a lot of patients at 85%, right? 94% of them are Medicaid. Emergencies, we only do a 63% good job. So only 63% of emergencies, we can actually get them in. Hygiene, 73%. Okay, that's good. We should do more, obviously. If it's hygiene, we should be close to 90%. When it comes to orthodontics and implants, we're in the 40s. And that's the problem, right? Because what we're doing is we're prioritizing first in, first out. We're not necessarily prioritizing people who are going to spend a lot of money with us. Easier said than done, right? How do we prioritize that? Well, we create room on the schedule. We create room on an imaginary column. We figure out how to shift schedule things. So we've seen lots of our clients after they've seen this data. I'm like, all right, what do we do? Because if we're spending money to drive new implant, I place implants, I want to drive these implant patients, I'm driving them in the door, and you're telling me that I can't see them for the next 4 weeks or 6 weeks. They absolutely are not going to wait. They're not going to show up. So it's super important. Micrometrics are important. Micrometrics is my favorite word because you have to go 3, 4, 5 levels deep to understand why we're not growing. And sometimes it's the wrong patient mix. You just a prophy mill all day long, and none of those people are going to restorative. And then you're wondering that I'm busy working 4 days, 4.5 days a week, but I'm only growing at 2%. And that's the challenge we help solve for a lot of these larger organizations. What is your goal? Why aren't you getting there? Let's use AI to analyze marketing, sales, and ops so that we can do that. I want to go into some of these features. The key element of this is early warning signals. It's you have to understand what early warning signals are applicable to you. Is it high value leads? Is it emergencies? Is it cancellations? Is it days booked out? And then get these metrics in the hands of the right person, office manager, your regional manager, your marketing VP, your operations VP, COO, CMO, depending on who you have in the organization. And you give them that information, that insight, that they can act upon it. That is where AI has the most use because nobody has the time in the day to look through all these reports and look through all the different things, all the different charts and graphs and have all these logins. The power of AI, it should be able to tell you what to do, tell the right person what to do, what next step to take to drive top line growth and bottom line growth. That's important. this, as you think about growing this, one of the things we do a lot with some of our larger clients is that they come to us, and I'm giving you an example of how you should pick people to work with. People have to understand your business, number one. They have to understand um, how patients are moving through the entire journey. And we had an interesting problem. I'm bringing this up just to show you guys how we help this organization understand how to allocate their marketing budget. And we said, instead of figuring out and asking your CPA, by the way, I was one. And so I'm allowed to, I guess, say, I only understood financial statements. I only understood like basic understanding of what marketing should be. But those are really archaic ways of determining how much you should allocate for marketing. You can allocate 2%, you should allocate 15%, depending where you are, right? And when you decide, and this is nothing to do with AI, but I wanted to show this to you. When you decide to build a marketing budget, it should always start with available capacity, and then you figure out, again, when you see this rubric, you will get this because you want to understand where you want to spend the money based on what type of patients you want and based on how much capacity you have. That's the right way to think about it. And then when you put this in place, then you employ AI on top to make sure it's driving the right thing based on the capacity you have. That's where we have to start. We don't have to start with, I need AI. We have to start with, what do we have capacity for? What do we want more of? What do we want less of? And based on that, you decide the marketing, then you decide the tool that will measure the marketing, then you measure the sales conversions, then you look at operations, and that's where you drive predictable growth. Dentistry is an incredible field that I've had the privilege of being part of. And part of the reason I wake up every morning knowing that we're making a genuine impact by allowing more patients to see their doctor at those intervals that they need to show up at. And I'm very passionate about this industry because I've seen the impact it makes on people's lives. And I recently gave a talk in Europe and in Asia about the importance of where things are going. And I think dentistry is at the very precipice of growth over the next decade or two. Yes, consolidation is happening and it's going to bring its pros and cons. I think there's a lot of amazing organizations that are really helping improve access to care across the world. But the advent of technologies, AI, and elsewhere, we're going to see a tremendous, tremendous um, uh, growth, especially for people who are early adopters. If there is a book that you may want to read, or just subscribe to McKinsey. Actually, they have really good information on the digital transformation of that the world is happening. But what McKinsey says is interesting. They say the early adopters to the digital transformation, AI transformation process are going to be the ones that are going to come out as winners because people who are going to put their head in the sand, hopefully you guys are not, that's why you're part of Catapult, are going to really outshine, outgrow their competitors because you will have a much better understanding of your customer. At the end of the day, no matter what business you're in, even if you're in my business, the most important insight I have is being very close to my customer, understanding what their pain points are, and then fashioning my messaging, my product development, my engineering according to what the most biggest pain points that I want to solve are. And as you guys think about marketing, make sure you pick the right people that can actually drive predictable growth. Hold them accountable. If you have, if you're picking a marketing vendor, make sure you ask them like, hey, these are my goals. I like to place implants, right? I like to do clear aligners. I like to do more veneers. I like to do dentures. Well, I like to do it. I have a friend who loves to do extractions, which is good for him. Um, but at the end of the day, I want the patients of the right kind, right? Because when you're doing that, you have a unique ability today. if you hire the right person and you deploy the right tools, you have the unique ability to write your own destiny when it comes to financial health. You can do it, right? But there's a lot of noise out there as you pick all these players. Who do I pick? What AI tool do I pick? Everybody has AI now. Everybody thinks they're an AI company. And it's very important to ask the right questions from everybody in the organization, and so that you are driving very predictable growth. Predictability is the most important thing in growth. And the one lesson I've learned from the larger organizations that we serve today is that they have a very methodical approach to growth, and they want to measure everything. I know Peter Drucker, the famous Harvard professor, said, you can't really manage or improve unless you measure it. Right? It really starts with measurement. And what do we measure? We have to measure every aspect of the patient journey from start to finish. Where does the patient start their journey to come to you? And in that whole journey, what impediments do we create for the patient? What barriers do we create for the patient that prevents the patient from doing what's in their best interest, which is choose their health? And usually those barriers are human barriers. We are not communicating right. We need to invest in our people, in our training, and figure out the change management process. That is the lessons I've learned from building 5 different businesses over the course of the last 10 years in different verticals. And the lesson I've learned is, I'll leave you with this last thought experiment, or not even a thought, it's not even an experiment. One of my mentors, not that he mentored me directly, but I've been following him, as a guy named Dan Sullivan. He has this process called the strategic coach. And one of his favorite quotes that I've always had, there's 2 things I'll leave you guys with. And maybe I'll leave you with some book suggestions. He said, what got you here won't get you there. And it's a very deep thought. I think about it every day. So as you think about the next stage of your growth in your organization, your practice, you have to understand that what got you here, the people that got you here, the systems that got you here, whatever you did, if you want to go to that next stage of growth, you might need different people, different systems, different processes, right? So what got you here won't get you there. And the other thing, which was the most, it's very almost unbelievable comment. It's so outlandish when you hear it for the first time. And there's a book on that. So there's 2 books I'll recommend you. And the book that he wrote was 10x is easier than 2x. His hypothesis is it's easier to grow 10x than 2x. It sounds very crazy. But when you read the book, you'll say, oh my God, really? It's easier to grow 10x than 2x. And it's some of the philosophies that you will employ in that process, where you will think about the who's, not the hows, right? You don't have to ever figure out how to do anything, as long as you can figure out the who that can do it. So Dan Sullivan's a great guy, great author. 10x is easier than 2x. Who, Not How is a great book. The Catalyst was my favorite books, which talks about how to change anyone's mind. So if you end up picking some books for the Christmas season, pick those up by Dan Sullivan. 10x is easier than 2x. Who, Not How, and then Jonah Berger's The Catalyst. If you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me, patientprism.com is my email, Amol at patientprism.com is my email. Happy to obviously answer any questions and, help you kind of think through ideas for growth in 2025 and beyond.